Here we've got the HDT L34 for sale. It's a great little car, known history from day one, all the documentation that's needed to purchase a car like this with buyer's confidence, that being Cam's papers, signed by Harry Firth as the head of the Marlborough Holden dealer team back in 1975. It's got its Holden build sheet that depicts what it was optioned with and who it was delivered to new, and that happened to be the HDT. And it's even got info from Vic Rhodes on when the car was first registered and who was the owner of said car. So it's all there. It's got all its ID tags, chassis number intact, and it's got a ton of bits and bobs all over the car that are quite clearly the DNA of the Holden dealer team for the tricks of the trade that they did to these very, very tricky and spectacular looking cars. Now, as far as a competitive car, the L34 didn't make for a successful rally car, sadly, especially compared to the XU1. It was really a victim of its own success and the fact that it was just so powerful. It had a lot of trouble getting the grunt down onto the ground, onto the dirt, and it was also a larger car and a heavier car than the XU1. Having said that though, it did score one significant win with Bondi and George Shepherd in its debut year. However, 1976 rolled around, the HDT restructured quite a bit with Mr. P. Brock departing, and it was not to be that the car was followed up. They decided to pick up and run at the Geminis. The car stayed with the HDT until about 78, early 79, then it was sold to Queenslander Barry Nixon Smith. Barry has owned quite a few ex-HDT cars. He obviously had a pretty good relationship with the guys there, probably Harry the best. Barry campaigned the car for a couple of years up here and then sold it off down to the Cullens down in Victoria. They had a large Holden dealership. They in turn flipped it off to Thompson and Tubb down in Tasmania, and that's where the car stayed from about the early 80s up until very recently. So she's had a pretty good life as far as a rally car goes, and it's got a lot of fantastic features on it. I guess most startling of which is its original HDT spec L34 engine is still with the car. I had no idea it was the original motor until we got the Cam's papers, and there's in Harry's own handwriting what engine number it is, and sure enough it is still with the car. It turns out that the original engine was pulled out of the vehicle in the early 80s when Thompson and Tubb got a hold of it, and it wasn't put back in until recently. So whilst a lot of people may have screamed sacrilege knowing that a genuine HDT car, its motor pulled out of it, I think for posterity it's quite good that now that it has been put back in the car and it's quite a fresh engine. It's also got its original Aussie 4-speed close ratio box in the car, and the car does come with a genuine L34 differential. Currently the car's got a 9-inch rear end in it, which is sort of testimony to the type of power that the car used to run through it when it lived its final iteration as a competition life as a tarmac rally car. So she did target Tasmania for quite a few years and was quite a successful little car too, which is quite nice. It's still got a few mods on the car that can either just stay there and let the owner enjoy, or they can have a look into getting these updates removed and putting back on the period spec gear for the car, all of which Curie Investments will quite happily help you with. You can see the little AP Racing calipers sticking out from there, and the uprated hubs with a forward stud pattern and so on. Sacrilege, you might say, but nonetheless it was all there for driver safety, so you can never disregard that. Fortunately, the owners hung on to a lot of the period rally stuff with the car. You'll see the old school Terra Trip there if this little thing ever decides to focus. A couple of gauges and so on. The car's been restored by Gary Rogers Motorsport. And we'll have a look at the engine. Here we go. There's a few tricks under here. I won't go into all of them, but just one little snippet that I do quite like seeing, along with obviously the original engine, is if you just have a look down here, that hole in the radiator support, quite a large one. I'll stick that one little fella through there. That's where Harry ran his Clayton's dry sump through. You can see it's been quite neatly crimped in around through there, and I quite like whoever did the work on that. When you got the car up on the hoist, you can also see other little bits and bobs done by the same hand, and yeah, it's quite fascinating extracting the stories from these cars. I quite enjoy it. You'll also note the bonnet pin just there. They ran up through there to secure the bonnet, and the period shots of the car show that that is in the correct spot. I've spoken to all the previous owners, none of whom can talk about having a big one in the car, so all these type of things are all as it was as per the HDT. The car's race history in 75 shows that Bondi had a bit of a altercation with a tree stump at a rally at Coffs Harbour. However, there is a documentary of that race, and it shows the car the next morning, and it turns out that it was just a low-lying stump and it tore out the front suspension on the car there, on the navigator's side. Of course, navigator's side wasn't at Bondi, so she wasn't a big one at all. It's just all nice to know with cars like this you can follow their history, and when something like that pops up, you can actually do a little bit of snooping around and work out what's what, rather than just relying on speculation and hearsay. So anyway, that's the car. The owner's had his fun with it. He's thoroughly enjoyed it, but he now knows it's time to move it on. It does need an owner who is prepared to take that final 10% of getting it back to as it was when Bondi used to race her, and he's pretty keen to do a deal. So please give me a call or send me an email, and hopefully we can work something out and you'll be able to park a genuine HDT L34 Torana in your garage, and I reckon that'd be a pretty nice day. Okay, thanks for your time.